For the number one pick in the draft, I have the Dallas Mavericks selecting Cooper Flagg out of Duke University. Easy pick, clear number one choice. Flagg is a prospect like we haven't seen in a while. He presents a good future for the Mavericks, but also it allows him to contribute straight away to a title of aspiration team. Flagg is a 6'9" forward that averaged 19 points per game on 48, 38, 84 splits, while also averaging 7.5 rebounds, 4 assists, and nearly 3 stocks a game. He's showing his versatile skill set, which will undoubtedly help him impact NBA games on many, many different levels. He has MVP upside, but at minimum, he will be multiple-time All-Star, probably making all defense and all NBA teams throughout his career. I think his game somewhat reminds me of Kawhi and a bit of Tatum, but it's such a unique player that it's hard to really draw one accurate comparison to him. Flagg will be playing alongside some amazing defenders like AD, Lively, Gafford, PJ Washington. This will allow him to kind of find his way in the defense while also being slow to start out, not being the number one option, and being the third option behind AD and Kyrie. I think this could really help him further solidify his game, kind of like how Kawhi got drafted to Spurs, where there's not a lot of pressure on him yet, but he'll just be able to go to a winning situation and develop properly. With the second overall pick, the Spurs select Dylan Harper out of Rutgers, son of NBA player Ron Harper, and for me, the clear second best player in this draft. With the Giannis trade looking unlikely, the Spurs will more than likely make a selection here. The fit in San Antonio is a little iffy, but especially so high up in the draft, you simply take the best player available. Harper's a 6'5" point guard that likes to go downhill and attack the basket. I expect him to be a solid, but not elite shooter at the NBA level. There's real All-NBA potential in this guy, and he can be an amazing co-star for Wembanyama in San Antonio for the next 10 years. A solid playmaker and amazing scorer that can hold his own defensively is something every NBA team wants. He may not start day one due to the crowded backcourt in San Antonio, but will be able to learn from an all-star level point guard like Fox. His game is similar to Brunson, but brings size of a guard like Cade. This makes him a must pick at the second overall pick. At pick number 3, I have the Sixers selecting another player from Rutgers, Ace Bailey. Bailey might not be the safest prospect, but the upside for him is higher than even Dylan Harper. He's a 6'9" forward that can get you buckets. He's a tough shot taker and a tough shot maker. That shot making paired with some great length and incredible athleticism gives him all the tools to be an elite NBA player one day. However, there's still some real concerns, especially with the shots he takes and his limited playmaking ability. But if he can put it all together, he has all the tools to be an All-NBA, even MVP caliber player with high two-way potential. His fit in Philly allows him to start off in a smaller role and adapt to the NBA under the mentorship of Paul George, who has a skill set and playstyle that matches Bailey's very well. As his player comp, I have T-Mac. There's no guarantee he'll obviously turn out to be T-Mac, but that level of scorer with that shot making and that highlight finishing mirrors T-Mac pretty heavily in my opinion. At pick number 4, I have the Hornets selecting VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor. VJ is probably my personal favorite player in this class, probably the best athlete in the entire draft, and has the ability to elevate over almost anyone and throw it down on their heads. He also uses his athleticism on the defensive side of the ball, staying connected to his opponents and blocking shots in transition or as a help side defender. There are some questions around his on-ball creation and shooting, which he'll have to work on when entering the NBA. His shot has, however, gotten significantly better over the course of this year at Baylor. The player from the Bahamas will fit like a glove between LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, and I expect him to start day one for this franchise. The fast-paced offense of the Hornets will really complement his playstyle. A player comparison I've seen a lot is Victor Oladipo, which is pretty accurate, but I think his upside is even higher, and I do also see a lot of similarities to Anthony Edwards coming out of Georgia. Obviously not the end of today, but if he develops correctly, he has that same potential to be an All-NBA, even MVP caliber player in my opinion. At pick number 5, I have the Utah Jazz selecting Trey Johnson out of Texas. Shooter. Whether it be off the dribble, pull up, or catch and shoot. Three-pointer or from the mid-range, he can shoot the basketball. There's some star upside with Trey Johnson, but at worst he will be an elite shooter. Johnson shot 40% from 3 in his season with Texas, where to carry the majority of the offense. However, he struggles at getting to the rim at a high volume and finishing those attempts. To be an effective ball handler, he has to expand on some of the flashes of playmaking that we see in his freshman season. He gets called ball watching at times and not being locked in on the defensive end when navigating screens. Johnson also struggles with on-ball defense due to his weaker frame at only 190 pounds at 6'6", and will have to definitely put on some muscle. My comparison for him is a taller Cam Thomas, which is by no means a bad player, but there is some upside for him with flashes of Devin Booker in his game. The Jazz are still looking for their franchise player, and taking a swing on Johnson, who's only my 7th ranked prospect in this year's draft, is well worth it in my opinion. With the 6th pick in this year's draft, I have the Wizards selecting Kasparas Jakushonis. The Lithuanian point guard spent the season playing at Illinois. I am a little higher on Kasparas than most people. He's a 6'6" pass-first guard with excellent vision for the game. I particularly fell in love with his fit in Washington as their point guard of the future, which allows Bob Carrington to play the 2, and for Jakushonis to set up the athletic monsters like Bilal Coulibaly and Alex Sarr. The Wizards, similar to the Jazz, are still looking for their number 1 option, which Jakushonis is definitely not, but he can be a solid 3rd option and the point guard for the futures. And the Wizards have to hope they land AJ Debance in the next draft. I'm a strong believer in his shooting, which ended a little rocky last year after starting off hot. He averaged a lot of turnovers, but I don't really look too much into that since they're not careless and more often than not are just restart a little too overambitious, which he can improve on in the NBA. One skill I fell in love with him is the way he crashes the glass, especially offensively. For a guard, that shows his energy, his commitment, his motive for the game. My comparison is a slightly worse version of Haliburton, a taller playmaking first guard whose jumper can be a little inconsistent and has tendencies to be passive at times. At pick number 7, I have the New Orleans Pelicans select Kon Knueppel out of Duke University, making him the 2nd Duke prospect in the lottery after Flagg going number 1. Kon is a 6'6" sharpshooting wing who shot 40% from 3 on over 5 attempts a game. However, I don't think he is merely a shooter. There's some interesting on-ball creation and a good IQ when navigating the pick and roll alongside Malevich, who we'll get to later. But even if he can't translate that to the NBA, he will be a reliable shooter and a floor raiser for the Pelicans, who ranked in bottom 10 of three-point shooting. I thought about taking one of the bigs here, but with Yves Missi, I think some of Malevich's skill set is redundant. Kon's high IQ allows him to fit into any NBA offense day 1, but he has some questions surrounding his lateral quickness on the defensive end. I saw a lot of Luke Kennard comparisons, which in my opinion is just a little lazy. My comp for him is somewhere in between Joe Ingles and Desmond Bane. Some solid scorers that can navigate the pick and roll, do a bit of secondary playmaking, and be knockdown shooters in their prime. At pick number 8, I have the Nets select Jeremiah Fears, a crafty scorer out of Oklahoma. He is, in my opinion, the biggest boom or bust prospect in this draft so far. A 6'4" point guard that can score on all 3 levels and put up 17 points a game on disappointing efficiency as a freshman on a somewhat disappointing Oklahoma team. Fears has an elite handle that will without a shadow of doubt translate to the NBA. The question is whether he can be a more consistent scorer and finish the opportunity he creates. With the attention he garners from the defense, he has some good playmaking upside, but his turnovers at college were a little careless, which is to be expected from one of the younger players in this class. My comparison for him is Colin Sexton, but similar to Sexton coming out of Alabama, there is definitely upside for more and even all-star potential. At pick number 9, I have Toronto selecting Kamon Maluach. Maluach is a rim-protecting 5 that spent his last season playing at Duke after coming over from the NBA's Africa Academy. Kaman only started playing basketball 6 years ago and has shown his impact due to his amazing physicals. He is 7'2" with a 7'7" wingspan, where he is only behind giants such as Wembanyama, Zach Edey, or Rudy Gobert. Knowing Masai Ujiri, I don't see a world where the Raptors don't take Maluach if he is available, especially with Jakob Poeltl entering his 30s. Maluach can be the long-term replacement while learning from Poeltl, who has a similar skill set. Offensively, Maluach will set solid screens, work the pick and roll, and catch lobs. He is also active on the defensive glass, which is a big part of the Raptors' identity. Defensively, he can be a great shot blocker and rim protector. I also think he'll be a lot better on the perimeter than people think, due to relatively high mobility for someone of his size. His feel for the game is still not fully developed when it comes to rotations and being prone to fouling, but I believe he can figure it out, and at worst, he can be a rotational center. At his peak, a potential DPOY candidate. He reminds me a lot of Derek Lively at the Mavs, which I think is a fair comparison for his NBA career. Next up, I have the Rockets selecting Carter Bryant with the 10th overall pick in this draft. Bryant is your prototypical 3-and-D player at the wing position. The Rockets desperately need some shooting. Bryant shot 37% from 3, with around 60% of all his shots being those 3-pointers. He only averaged 6.5 points in college, but he wasn't asked to do much. His impressive physicals, being 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan and coming in at 220 pounds, makes him fit perfectly into the NBA. His biggest value comes off his defense, where he averages a steal and a block a game and has the ability to take on a team's best offensive weapon. Offensively, he will probably be reduced to standing in the corner, but his great vertical leaping and overreaching athleticism allows him to run well in transition, cut to the basket, and to attack closeouts. He is limited in his on-ball creation, but that is not something the Rockets need with this pick. He will play well off Thompson, Şengün, and maybe Jalen Green, depending on whether they trade him or not. My NBA comparison will be somewhere between OG Anunoby and Trevor Ariza. Although he might not quite hit that ceiling of OG, I think he'll be a solid 3-and-D forward going forward. With the 11th pick in this year's draft, I have Portland selecting Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. I have only one word for him, and that is defense. Whether it be in the post or in the perimeter, being in the passing lanes, shot blocking, or playing help side and disrupting drives, he can do it all. Murray Boyles is 6'8" big with a 7'2" wingspan and coming in at 250 pounds, being physically one of the most NBA-ready players in this draft. His elite motor and intensity helps him stay on the court, but the question around him is whether he can be good enough offensively to get consistent NBA minutes. Most of his scoring in college came out of post-ups, which won't really work at his height at the NBA level. He is not a threat from 3 and has limited offensive skills. I think there's also some potential for him to be a small ball 5 in the league. I think Portland could be a great fit if they move on from Ayton and Time Lord. A defensive lineup of Boyles, Kamara, Avdia, Sharp, and Scoot could have some nice upside and allows Boyles to not be the biggest liability on offense. My NBA comparison for him and what he should thrive to be is Draymond Green. If he improves his playmaking further, I think he could have some serious value in this league similar to Draymond, a versatile defender that can guard anything on the floor. At number 12, I have the Bulls selecting center Derek Queen out of Maryland. I'm pretty high on Derek Queen, but when making this draft, I noticed that the fit is not ideal in most of these situations. Derek Queen brings massive upside. He's a 6'10" big with great ball skills. He has a great handle for his size and a great touch at the rim with both hands, and has a strong mid-range game which he can fall back on. One thing which would really help him in today's NBA if he can add that 3-pointer to his repertoire, which is definitely possible seeing his mid-range and free throw shooting. Coming in at 245 pounds, he is physically ready for the NBA, and his passing is above average for a big as well, which will help him improve his value offensively as well. Defensively, he won't be able to protect the rim due to a lack of athleticism, and his conditioning has also been put into question, which I think won't be an issue in the NBA whatsoever. There is some question whether he's a 4 or 5 in the league, which all depends on whether the 3-point shot comes around. With the Bulls reportedly looking to trade Vucevic, which is absolutely the right decision, Queen could fill that role of a talented offensive big man on the Bulls. My NBA comparison for Queen is somewhere between Şengün and Naz Reid, depending on how he develops. At pick 13, I have the Hawks selecting Egor Demin out of BYU. The Russian 19-year-old is one of the most unique draft prospects in a while. He projects anywhere from a point guard to a forward in the NBA. He's a relatively skinny player weighing in at 200 pounds at 6'9". His biggest upside is his playmaking. He can make difficult passes look simple and has great court vision and overall basketball IQ. His size and playmaking allows him to take advantage of smaller guards being matched up on him and draw 2 players in the pick and roll. He moves well in transition and has great understanding of where to be on the basketball court at all times. Some of his biggest weaknesses is his physicality and defense. Strong to finish when absorbing contact at the rim and can get bullied by stronger defenders or get blown by from smaller guards. His 3-pointer is also a concern, which has to come around for him to stay on the floor as an NBA player. The Hawks could use another ball handler next to Young, and the Hawks' recent draft patterns being surrounding Trae Young with bigger wings, I think is a solid swing for Atlanta. It's nearly impossible to find an accurate NBA comparison, but if I had to, he's a somewhat taller but less physical version of Josh Giddey. With the 14th pick in the 2025 draft, I have the Spurs selecting Asa Newell out of Georgia. Newell is a 6'10" big that can play either the 4 or the 5 for the Spurs. He can be a great long-term backup for Wemby, but also has the potential to play alongside him, with him being the 5 on offense and the 4 on defense, with Wemby on the field. He's a highly athletic big that can work well in the pick and roll and in transition. He finished 73% of his finishes at the rim. He has also shown versatility on the defensive end, being able to step outside to guard wings, but also have the ability to protect the paint at a reasonable level. Although his lean frame can lead to him getting out-muscled in the paint at times. He has shown willingness to shoot the 3 and has a quick release. However, he only shot 29% from 3, but the upside for him being able to do this is definitely there. His athleticism also allows him to be active on the offensive glass, getting a lot of putbacks at Georgia last year. My NBA comparison for him is what John Collins was on the Hawks. A good play finisher with elite athleticism is something that the Spurs could really use, and if they develop him right, he can be a key part of their future. With the 15th overall pick in the 2025 draft, I have the Thunder selecting the Frenchman Noah Essengay. Essengay is the first overseas player in this draft, having completed his last season in the first German division and Eurocup with Ratio Farm Ulm. Essengay is a 6'10" forward with an estimated 7'3" wingspan. He has some of the best physical and athletic tools in the entire draft class, but he's definitely still on the raw side as a prospect. With the Thunder drafting him, it will allow him to develop slowly at the start, with no pressure and one of the best development staffs in the league. In the long term, he also feels a need for the Thunder, who don't have any big wings. He's a switchable defender, which allows him to fit well into the Thunder team. He can guard the perimeter, protect the paint, and also force turnovers, which allows him to run in transition, where he finishes extremely well around the basket. His offense is predominantly around the rim, of cuts, lobs, and fast breaks. There are some flashes of him potentially stretching the floor, but that will be one of the key things he'll have to work on to stay in the league. He reminds me of someone like Jonathan Isaac, but perhaps with slightly better finishing around the rim and more fluidity on offense. I definitely think he could go higher as well if some teams fall in love with him. With the 16th overall pick that the Grizzlies received from the Desmond Bane trade, I have them selecting Rasheer Fleming. Since the Grizzlies don't have a position of need really outside of center, which I think would be a reach to go for a prospect like Sorger or Behringer, I have them selecting the best player available, Fleming. Fleming is a long athletic forward that has all the tools to be a high-end role player in the league. He comes in at 6'9", 235 pounds, and a ridiculous wingspan of 7'5". Fleming has a really good motor and gives 110% on both sides of the ball at all times. He's a good defender that can guard wings while also providing some weak side rim protection. He crushes the offensive glass well for a wing and shows overall good pressure towards the rim in transition and off cuts. I'm not fully sold on his three-pointer as it's not completely fluid and wasn't good in previous seasons, as well as his free throw shooting being sub 70% for his college career. But this year at St. Joseph's, he showed real improvements, which hopefully develop to the NBA level since he's a player that I really enjoy watching. His on-ball creation is limited, which leads me to think he'll be merely a play finisher at the NBA level, which is completely fine, but his ceiling is maybe not as high as for some other players. My NBA comparison for him would be earlier career Jeremy Grant. He does a lot of things right, can attack the rim, and provide some outside shooting. The 17th overall pick in the draft, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Nick Clifford from Colorado State. Clifford is on the older side, being a 5-year college player, playing with Colorado State the last 2 years after transferring from Colorado. He should have an immediate impact as a 3-and-D player, which the Wolves could really use, with them probably losing Nickeil Alexander-Walker in free agency. He's a versatile wing defender, being able to defend 1 through 3 really well. He's an efficient offensive player with a high IQ and often make the right decisions. He looks to be a low usage but high impact role player with his special skill being rebounding, which he has done extremely well in his entire college career, which leads me to my player comparison, which is a bit lazy, but it's Josh Hart, a rebounding guard/wing that plays hard and smart. He can definitely enrich the Minnesota bench on a rookie scale contract, although I was also high on Terrence Shannon Jr., who will hopefully get more minutes next season. With the 18th pick of the Washington Wizards selecting Jace Richardson from Michigan State. The son of Jason Richardson fell a lot due to his combine measurements where he measured in at 6'1.5" with a 6'6" wingspan, however. He's kind of stuck between positions, where he should be a point guard defensively, but plays more like a shooting guard on offense. However, his upside as a scorer in this league is still massive. He has a smooth handle and is a great three-point shooter, shooting 41% from 3 in college. I like the Wizards picking him as a prospect for the rebuild after falling this far in the draft. Although he isn't great, he is active on defense, knows his rotations, and is able to play in front of defenders on drives. But due to his lack of size, he'll probably be hunted in the NBA towards the start of his career. Jace Richardson also has some sneaky good athleticism, with a really good hang time, which allows him to finish at the rim decently well, probably inherited by his father, a two-time dunk contest champion. My comparison for him is Tre Mann, a guard that can score at all three levels, but isn't a true 1 or 2. With the 19th pick in the 2025 draft, I have the Brooklyn Nets selecting Will Riley out of the University of Illinois. Riley is the 6'9" wing with an on-ball shot creating upside at the NBA level. Although he moves well laterally, his defense is sometimes still inconsistent due to his weaker frame, only weighing in at 185, being arguably the skinniest player in this draft. In order for him to succeed at the NBA level on both offense and defense, he will have to put on some weight. Riley has a strong basketball IQ and even some playmaking upside. I like the Nets taking a swing on a guy like him, who has the biggest all-star upside out of the lottery in my opinion. But he's not yet refined and very raw as a prospect, and not yet physically ready for the NBA. Luckily, a rebuilding team like the Nets will allow him to get some early game time as they're looking to tank for the 2026 draft. Even though his game isn't nearly as refined, if it all works out, I think Riley can develop into someone like Brandon Ingram or Cam Johnson, who will be able to learn from, providing he doesn't get traded this offseason. With the 20th pick in the draft, I have the Miami Heat select Nolan Traoré out of France, playing for Saint-Quentin in the French First Division. The Miami Heat are lucky that he slides this far in the draft, as he fills a desperate need in their team at the point guard position. Traoré has a great handle and can read the pick and roll exceptionally well, which will allow for a great link-up play with Bam and Kel'el Ware as his bigs. He's 6'4" with a somewhat wiry frame, meaning he will definitely have to bulk up a little in the NBA. He's great at attacking the rim, and although he might lack some vertical athleticism, he more than makes up for it with his speed and agility, allowing him to split double teams, blow by players, and find gaps in the defense. He is active on defense, gets in the passing lanes, and moves well laterally. One of the bigger flaws comes with his shooting. He started off the season slow, but has been steadily improving, and although I don't believe the three ball will be a big weapon for him, I can see him easily becoming an average shooter due to his solid mechanics. He has some issues absorbing contact and making decisions under pressure, but that's something that will hopefully come with time. My NBA comparison for him is another European guard, Dennis Schröder. Both are fast, agile guards that defend well. They can blow by players and finish at the rim, despite a lack of size and verticality, and get teammates involved in the pick and roll and drive and kick. With the 21st pick in the draft, I have the Jazz select Liam McNeely out of the University of Connecticut. McNeely was a top high school prospect and projected as an elite shooter and a potential lottery pick. However, his main upside, which was his shooting, showed inconsistencies at UConn. Some of that was due to the lack of other shot creators, forcing him to take a lot of shots off the dribble or pull up. I like the Jazz taking a chance on his shooting upside, as they're looking for some solid long-term pieces for their rebuild, and McNeely has the capabilities to be a 6'8" wing and a good catch-and-shoot specialist. He has a high basketball IQ and doesn't turn the ball over much, usually making the right plays. He sometimes struggles to stay connected in defense and lacks some of those lateral movements to make him an impactful defender at the next level. His ceiling is a solid off-ball role player and elite shooter. That's why I still have him going so high, but in a world where his shot doesn't translate, he could be out of the NBA faster than we would think. If he can translate the shooting, I think he can be similar to a player like Corey Kispert. In the right situation, can contribute with some elite shooting and a good offensive impact. At pick 22, I have the Hawks selecting Cedric Coward out of Washington State. Coward has been rising on draft boards as of recently due to his impressive combine where he measured in at 6'6", 250 pounds, and a staggering 7'2" wingspan, while also impressing in the physical drills and the combine games. However, he's an older prospect who will be 22 once the season starts, starting at a D3 college, then going to Eastern Washington, and eventually Washington State. He has shown continuous improvement. He scored extremely efficiently at all three levels and has shown solid passing and is a good defender. However, a lot of inside scoring was based on him being simply stronger, which won't translate well to the NBA. However, I think his upside is mainly as a 3-and-D piece at the next level. He moves well without the ball and shot 38% from 3 throughout his 3 years at the D1 level. He also shows some interesting upside as a shot blocker, averaging 1.7 blocks per game. Although due to the low sample size, as he got injured after only 7 games, I wouldn't put too much stock in that. I think in an ideal world he can become a player of the level of Derek White if he figures everything out. But since that is a ridiculous expectation, I expect him to be someone along the level of Dante DiVincenzo. At pick 23, I have the Pelicans, who recently acquired this pick from Indiana, selecting Thomas Sorber from Georgetown. Earlier, I had the Pelicans going wing, meaning that I think they're perfectly in line to get someone center depth. Sorber comes in at 6'10 with a 7'6 wingspan. His game takes place in the paint, both on offense and defense. Sorber is a big body, weighing in at 250 pounds. He sets solid screens, operates the pick and roll well, and has a soft touch at the rim, which helps him as he's not the most gifted vertical athlete. Sorber projects to be a solid rebounder and shot blocker on defense. He works well in drop coverage, but has limitations with switches and closing out to the perimeter. However, his physical tools and especially his shot blocking upside with that wingspan definitely makes him a first round draft pick. He looks similar to someone like Isaiah Stewart, at least when it comes to basketball he plays. Whether he's a similar enforcer, we'll have to wait and see. With the Thunder probably losing Isaiah Hartenstein next summer, I have them selecting Danny Wolf with their second pick in this year's draft at 24. Danny Wolf can play both the 4 and the 5, and fits like a glove for this OKC offense. Wolf is a versatile big that can shoot, dribble, and pass the ball. He shot 34% from 3 last year and put up almost 10 rebounds and 3.5 assists. Playing with other bigs and can be a solid, cheap bench piece for the Thunder, going forward as they try to compete for championships. His limitations comes at the defensive end of the floor, where he is not mobile enough to guard on the perimeter, but also doesn't have the athleticism to defend the rim at a high enough level. However, I think some of his struggles can be masked by the elite defense that Thunder already have. With the 25th pick of the draft, I have Orlando selecting Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida. Staying in Florida, only moving to Orlando my mock draft, Clayton comes fresh off a championship, and he can be a contributing piece for the Magic that looks to be going for it after that Desmond Bane trade. With Cole Anthony leaving, it allows Clayton to step into the role of a ball-handling guard that can give you some scoring, with projected more consistent shooting than Anthony previously. Clayton shot 38.6% from 3 last season and his career overall on 7.8 attempts a game last season. He moves well off the ball, but also shows some on-ball skills, protecting the basketball with a low turnover rate, and even though his passing isn't quite good, he's somewhere in between a 1 and a 2. With the backcourt size for the Magic with Black, Suggs, and Bane, however, this should not be an issue, as he is a tough defender with a high motor, even though his size at 6'2", 6'3", could lead him to getting hunted at the NBA level. My NBA comparison for him is Seth Curry, and even though Clayton might not be that level of shooter that Seth Curry is, the playstyles are eerily similar, and Clayton has the advantage of being a slightly better defender than Seth. At pick 26, I have Brooklyn selecting point guard Ben Saraf from Israel. Saraf spent last season playing for Ratio Farm Ulm in the first German division in the Euro Cup, with other NBA draftee Noah Essenge. Saraf is a 6'6 point guard and one of the better playmakers in this draft. He averaged 12 points and 4.5 assists in Germany and was a major piece in the facilitator for his team to make the German playoff finals. Saraf was versatile, being able to play point guard and shooting guard due to his 6'6 height and good defensive instincts. He's really good at navigating the pick and roll and finding guys in transition. He looks like a pro already, composed in pressure situations and able to finish with push shots, floaters, and difficult layups around the rim. One of his biggest struggles is finding consistency and creating space for his jumpers, which are rather inconsistent for a guard. Although he has size, he lacks some athleticism when moving laterally, vertically, and struggles to blow by defenders. His shot selection is also questionable at times, and he sometimes forces tough shots, although he has also the ability to make those tough shots. He's an upside pick at the point guard spot, and even though I had Brooklyn selecting Fears at pick number 8, Saraf provides some higher upside as a playmaker while Fears is more of a scorer. They could definitely use another point guard at this position. His game reminds me of Manu Ginobili at times, but I doubt he ever hits that ceiling. There are also some aspects that are similar to Ty Jerome. He handles the ball well, can get to the rim, and just an overall good scorer. We move on to the Nets' 4th first-round pick in this year's draft. Despite many saying the opposite, in my opinion, they should use the pick, as in the midst of their rebuild. With that being said, I have them selecting Joan Bergeron, the next French player entering the NBA. Joan Bergeron spent last season playing for Slovenian team, I apologize for butchering this in advance, Cedevita Olimpia. Joan Bergeron is probably the most athletic big man in this draft. He's great at finishing lobs, running the pick and roll with elite vertical abilities to throw down thunderous dunks. He's an extremely aggressive rebounder, one of the best in the Euro Cup this season at only 18 years old. He will turn 19 a month into this NBA season. He's also great at blocking shots at the rim and has good mobility, which allows him to hedge and even switch onto the perimeter against wings and forwards. His great mobility also allows him to run the floor, getting easy opportunities at the rim before the opposing big man is back. His decision-making and understanding of the game is still extremely raw, and he has no outside game whatsoever, taking 0 threes or mid-rangers all season. All of his shots came in the paint or at the foul line. Definitely an interesting developmental project for Jordi Fernandez and his team in Brooklyn. The most accurate NBA comparison would be someone like JaVale McGee. Extremely athletic, inside game, and will catch lobs and block shots. Moving on to the Celtics, with the 28th pick, I have them drafting Maxime Renaud from Stanford. Back-to-back French standards here, although their games couldn't be more different. Renaud spent the last 4 seasons playing for Stanford, hence why it makes sense that his basketball IQ is off the charts. He has a good combination of an inside and outside game, shot 35% from 3 throughout his stint at Stanford. This combined with a good knack for cutting to the basket and working the pick and roll or pick or pop makes him a dangerous weapon on offense. He averaged 20 and 10 in his final year while also putting up a block and a half a game. He also has some good post moves to punish smaller defenders, and his 7-1 frame makes it easy for him to shoot over defenders while also showcasing the ability to shoot from 3. However, some of his limitations are his athletic abilities. Lacks a quick first step even at the college level, and needs to put on some muscle to really be able to hang with some of the bigger guys in the NBA. He also has limitations on the defensive end, not being the greatest shot blocker and has issues guarding the perimeter play, preferring to play in drop coverage. I think the Celtics is a great fit, where he can come off the bench and maybe even start at times with Porzingis' health. His ability to shoot threes fits well in their system, and with Luke Kornet probably leaving them in free agency, they're in need of a solid backup big. His NBA comparison for me would be Bucks Brook Lopez, with definite worse shot blocking, but their ability to pull from 3 while rebounding, setting screens, and finishing around the basket is eerily similar. With the 29th pick of the NBA draft, I have the Suns selecting Cam Jones from Marquette. Cam Jones was higher up on draft boards at the start of the year, but due to Marquette losing a lot of talent, he was forced to take on more responsibilities, which heavily decreased his shooting splits, only averaging 31% from 3 after averaging 41% that previous season. However, I think Cam Jones is a solid and safe backup combo guard. Can do a little bit of everything. He's going to be one of the older prospects in this draft, being 23 years old on draft night. However, I see a solid rotational player off the bench in him that can help the Suns with some of their point guard minutes. He's a good leader, vocal on both offense and defense, and should provide the Suns with a calm, calculated, and versatile player. He reminds me of someone like DeLon Wright, in the way that he'll never have a massive role, but he can be a consistent player that does a little bit of everything and helps win basketball games, which the Suns desperately need right now without them having any first-round picks in the future. Moving on, with the last pick of the first round, I have the Clippers selecting Hugo Gonzalez from Real Madrid. The Spanish wing has some elite athletic tools, coming in at 6'7", 210 pounds, and a long wingspan. He's a high flyer that gets most of his points getting to the basket off cuts or in transition. He also has a knack for doing the little things, grabbing offensive boards and finishing putbacks for some highlight plays. His strong frame also allows him to go up against other defenders and finish through contact, which is rather impressive. The upside with this kid is insane. His biggest weakness is his three-pointer, which is falling rather inconsistent, although he is willing to take it. If he wants to find a role in the NBA, he needs to bring his percentage up from 29% to anywhere above 33, 34, 35%. He played at the highest level outside of the NBA, arguably the best non-NBA team, Real Madrid. He has shown that he can be an effective defender at the pro level. He has a high motor, disrupts offense, and his size and athleticism allows him to guard a plethora of positions, and allows him to function well in a defensive system focused around switching like the Clippers. He's sort of a hybrid of Mario Hezonja and Lou Dort, not being the best shooter coming in, but his athleticism is off the charts, and his defense is NBA ready day one, while his offense probably needs some time. Lastly, I want to mention some honorable mentions / sleeper candidates. First up, Drake Powell. Powell was a top high school recruit with athletic tools that did not really have a big role at UNC last year. The team could definitely take a flyer on him, as he has the potential to develop into a decent scorer at the NBA level. Next up, Adou Thiero. He's a forward that has some raw athletic tools, but his offensive game is still developing. Definitely worth taking in the early second round, in my opinion. Next, I have Ryan Kalkbrenner from Creighton. 7'1" center that has a strong 5-year college career, but will likely struggle at the NBA level due to a lack of athleticism and a weaker frame. Could definitely be a rotational or depth piece in the NBA. Next up, I have Yannick Conan Niederhauser. Niederhauser is a combine riser that could be a solid rotational piece. The Swiss center is a solid finisher around the rim and is a good shot blocker, although his rebounding still needs to improve for a center. Next, Noah Penda. Noah Penda is an athletic forward out of France, a solid switchable defender who is still raw as a prospect, but brings all the intangibles to become a solid NBA player one day. Next, I have Han-Sen Yang, the 7'1" Chinese center that dominated the CBA last season. A solid combination of size, strength, and skill. Has drawn comparisons to Jokic or Sengun, but is still very raw. His playmaking upside is intriguing though. Next up, I have Tyrese Proctor, combo guard from Duke. Good court vision, decent shooter, has the potential to be a good backup point guard and contribute to winning one day. Next up, Janai Broom, one of the front runners for College Player of the Year. A 6'10" big man that is reliant on his postgame. Probably won't translate to the NBA, similar to someone like Luka Garza, but will likely gain some attention due to his college career. Lastly, I have Chaz Lanier, solid 3-and-D piece that could work out in the NBA as a rotational piece. Shot over 40% from 3 throughout his 5-year college career.